The Carbon 2 Trufoam is my favorite paddle of 2025. But ever since I received the Carbon 4 Trufoam, I've been using it because it's new. The biggest complaints with the original Trufoams were the pop, power, and weight, all of which Carbon addresses with the Carbon 4. Will the Carbon 4 be my new favorite paddle, and how does it compare to the Carbon 2? Let's find out. If you haven't noticed, this is going to be my first full review in a while. I played with this paddle for about 3 weeks now, so I have a good understanding of how it plays and its durability. If you do decide to buy one, use code PICKLELEE to get it for around $250. Carbon does offer a 30-day trial period if you do want to try it out before buying it. The Carbon 4 Trufoam is Carbon's first hybrid shape option. To increase its hand speed, it features an arrow curve and slight tapering on the sides. Compared to a typical hybrid paddle, I would say the lengths are not that different. As you can see, the 4 is just very slightly longer, and I think the Carbon 2 has more surface area in general because of the 4's tapering. The core technology is the same as the other Trufoams. It uses a full foam core with some cutouts along with a fiberglass patch in the middle. The Carbon 4 Trufoam will have a 5.5 inch handle compared to the Carbon 2's 5.25 inch. I have relatively big hands, and getting a 2-hand on my Carbon 2 was just fine. I do think it's slightly more comfortable on the Carbon 4. I just don't think you should base your decision solely on this difference. The stock weight of my paddle was 7.9 ounces, and after my setup, it brought it up to 8.9. The setup I went with was 4 grams of 1 gram per inch tungsten tape on the sides. It's right above the curve, so around 4 and 8 o'clock. I also used the Ethos lightweight undergrip along with a 7 gram flick weight. I have lots of other videos on my setup, but just to go over it briefly, I like this setup because it maximizes the sweet spot on top, but because of the weight on the bottom, it still feels light enough to maneuver and flick. One of the biggest complaints with the Trufoam is that it didn't have enough pop or power. The Carbon 4 does bring a little bit more of both. It's not a different paddle, but you can notice the difference in pop. Specifically, my counters were coming off faster, which is always nice, but that also means your resets will come off a little bit higher. After adding my setup, I didn't notice a big difference in pop. In stock form, the sweet spot is okay, but there is room for improvement. I never played with the Carbon 2 stock, but compared to my modded up Carbon 2, the Carbon 4 in stock form edge hit a lot more. In terms of feel, there is slightly less dwell time and plushness, but that's just to be expected with the increased pop. The thing I love about the Trufoams in general is the spin and dwell time. Because of the extra spin and dwell time, I can really shape my shots well. The Carbon 4 is no different, and I can shape my shots really well, if not even better. In general, dinking is really easy, especially adding topspin on your shots. And since I like speeding up, I like how I can hold my dinks easily and disguise my lobs or speed ups. With my setup, my drops and drips were even more effective. Reset wise, I do edge hit a little bit more than my Carbon 2, but it's a lot better than what it was stock. Mishits in general did become less prevalent the longer I've played with it, so I think it's something you can just get used to, especially because I'm switching to a different shape. I was probably just spoiled with my Carbon 2 setup, which I felt like could reset everything. In stock form, the power of the Carbon 4 is good and an upgrade from the Carbon 2. My serves and returns were just always a bit deeper, which is always a plus. That being said, it's not effortless power like other power paddles on the market like the Yolas. I would say it's a slight bump in pop and power compared to the original Trufoams. You may notice some extra juice on certain shots like a body bag speed up or a counter. It's just not going to change how the whole paddle plays overall. At the end of the day, it's a bump up from the other Trufoams, but it's still on the lower tier of the power paddles. One of the better parts of my game are my hands, and I will normally win the hands battles I'm supposed to regardless of paddle. So normally I don't talk about hand speed too much unless it was noticeably bad. That being said, the 4 has the lightest swing weight of all the Trufoams, and I did notice it being faster in the hands, so that's always a plus. One of the greatest strengths of the Trufoam is the durability. I think full foam cores should be the future because they supposedly don't core crush, and I think that the Trufoams are a perfect example. All the Trufoams I've played with play the same as I first got them after many hours of playtime. I even have one friend who used his for 6 months without issue. That level of durability, especially with frequent play, is not really heard of with any Gen 2 or Gen 3 paddle. The only durability issue that I see with the Trufoams is that there is sometimes a slight rattle, which doesn't affect performance but is a little bit annoying. I'm not 100% that it's covered with the warranty, but I know that some people did have some luck with that. All in all, the CRBN4 Trufoam will be an upgrade from the previous versions for most people. Almost everyone wants more pop and power, and everyone wants lighter swing weight, both of which the CRBN4 provides. However, if you already have a Trufoam, I don't think the increase in pop and power will bump it into a different tier of power paddle. If you're more of a finesse player like me, I think this paddle is perfect for you. You can shape balls really easily, reset well, and you still have enough juice in the front. For those of you who already have a Trufoam and are considering switching, here is my verdict. For context, if you didn't know already, I'm a huge proponent of standard shaped paddles for doubles, especially with the Trufoams. If you currently have a CRBN1 or CRBN3 Trufoam, I think you should switch to the 2. The 4 is in that same boat where I think you should make the upgrade. If you're switching from the 2 to the 4, that's when I think it's less simple. With both paddles modded, I think that the CRBN2 has a larger sweet spot than the CRBN4, which lends to more control. On the other hand, the CRBN4 has more pop, power, and faster hand speed. I feel like the majority of people will gravitate towards the 4. I just wanted to point out it's not a straightforward upgrade in all aspects, like going from a 1 to the 4, for example. Thank you guys so much for watching. Comment below what paddle you want to see next, or if you have any other questions about the CRBN4. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.